Before I start this video, I want to apologize for how awkward it's probably going to be. I'm pretty terrible at talking under pressure, and I've never made my own video before, so this is kind of new and I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Hopefully you can overlook the secondhand embarrassment. My name's Chelsea Bradley. I'm 22 years old, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder. With PTSD comes things like sleepless nights, depression, anxiety, loss of appetite, and panic attacks, just to name a few. And I've also been a fan of Teen Wolf since the show aired a couple of years ago. I think it's one of the best television shows on maybe ever, and a lot of it has to do with how relatable the characters are, despite them being werewolves and banshees and kanamas, or like Styles and Nugetsune. Styles and Dylan O'Brien is the original reason why I wrote my Teen Wolf thank you letter on Tumblr, and why I decided to make this video to go along with it. I don't have a Nugetsune in me, but there's something inside of me that tries to take control, that sometimes takes over to the point where I feel like I'm going insane, that I'm going to hurt myself or the people closest to me. And for the first time ever, I have a character that I can relate to. Even before the Nugetsune took Styles as a host, he was starting to deal with anxiety attacks that he really didn't understand, and I think showing Styles' struggle to make sense of what was going on inside of his head was a really beautiful move by Jeff Davis and the Teen Wolf writers. Anxiety attacks don't make sense, even after you learn what they are and techniques to control them. I've been dealing with them for 2 years now, and I'm still not much better at them as I was when it first started. There's this scene in Battlefield where Styles is talking to Miss Morell in the counselor's office, and that's a scene that has really stuck with me since I first saw it. I actually cried the first time I watched it. I still cry when I watch it back. It shows Styles talking to Miss Morell, and but every time I watch it, instead of Styles sitting there, I imagine myself sitting in the counselor's office. Instead of playing with a lacrosse stick, I'm scratching at my legs or pulling at my sleeves. Sometimes I tug my hair. I have a whole bunch of these little tics that I don't really realize that I'm doing until someone points them out to me. And Styles talks about how he can't sleep, how he feels like bad things are always going to happen, that they're right around the corner, and how sometimes it's really hard for him to breathe through it. And it's just these things that I and thousands of other people have to struggle with every single day. Sometimes it's easier to fight, sometimes you just can't. And to see a show directed at teenagers like myself, bring light to anxiety and showing how scary they can be, but how you can talk through it, and there's people out there to talk to, is kind of a breath of fresh air. I didn't know what panic attacks were until 2 years ago when I had my first one, and I actually thought I was dying that night, and that I'd have to go to the hospital and to be locked up because I was so scared. And I feel like seeing and hearing characters and the show dealing with these things might help other people like me who don't know what they're feeling get some sort of understanding. In a world where mental illnesses are sort of pushed to the side by people because you can't always see the effect it has, a bit of understanding can go a long way. So many people don't even really believe that mental illnesses are a real thing because it doesn't physically manifest itself always. And I can list a whole bunch of people off the top of my head, and that just having some kind of connection, someone to relate to, really does help a lot. Character in a television show or not. Um, but I'll touch more on that later. But I wanted to make a comment about Miss Morello's closing sentence in that scene. It's a quote that I fall back on now. I never actually knew of it until that scene, and I was like, oh my god. It says, it's a Winston Churchill quote, and it's, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I have the quote written on an index card under my pillow that I pull out in the middle of the night, or on days where I just can't bring myself to get out of bed. And it's that boost to get up, to fight on. Because you have to fight. There's no other way to handle it. And I kind of fall back on that a lot. Another beautiful move by Jeff Davis and the Teen Wolf producers was showing that struggle that Styles was going through and how that's changing him. Characters in books and movies, television shows deal with these incredibly stressful events, and very rarely do you see the mental toll those scenarios take on the heroes. Which makes sense because that's kind of a lot to deal with when you're trying to make a plot work and everything. But I think showing that struggle makes the characters much more human. Dylan O'Brien, we gotta touch on him a little bit now. He's by far the best actor we have in my generation. He takes everything he's handed to him, and he blows it out of the park. The comedic side of Styles. Admittedly, that was my reason for continuing to watch Teen Wolf. That and his strange, wonderful relationship with Scott. To the terrified, lost Styles, and now this dark, evil side that he's battling with. And even evil, you have to love him and root for him because he's Styles. And half of that reason that you love him is because you can see the struggle that he's having with himself, even when he's not. Even when he is doing all these bad things to his friends and his family, and Dylan just portrays that wonderfully, flawlessly, really. The Nagitsune plotline is brilliant and so different from anything Teen Wolf has touched on before. Anything really, any show dealing with the supernatural has really touched on. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, but it could have been so disastrous for the series if not for Dylan and the way he handled it. Extra kudos to him. He's so believable that sometimes it's hard for me to watch him suffering like that. I'm proud to say that I've been a fan of his since the beginning, and I'll be a fan until well after Teen Wolf comes to an end. However, if you want to keep it going for the rest of forever, that would be pretty great too, because I don't know what I will do with myself when it ends. Another thing I want to touch on about Teen Wolf is how it brings my family together. My mother, my brother, my sister, and I have all been fans since the beginning. I was the only one who watched the first episode when it aired, actually. And I watched it maybe like 4 times because I had it taped. And I was just like, I need more of this right now. I couldn't get the show out of my head. Even actually before my sister watched it, I told her she needed to come sit down and watch it with me because of Styles, and how she'd fall madly in love with like his sense of humor and just his facial expressions. And I'm happy to say that I was right. We used to all sit down and watch it every Monday, and then afterwards my brother and I would sit and talk through the episode. And try to figure out what was going to happen next. I'm proud to say that I called Lydia as the Banshee and Jennifer as the Dirac. I maybe threw a fit after Jennifer was, they figured out Jennifer was the Dirac, and there was a little bit of dancing around my living room. My mom and I have weird jokes about like when we hear things outside, especially at night, about being like the Kanama. I had nightmares for days after the first episode. um, I switched my work availability for Monday nights to no later than 9 o'clock at night because I needed to be home to watch Teen Wolf. They laugh at me. They probably all think I'm absolutely ridiculous. But I couldn't handle that weight and having to watch it by myself. My sister dorms at college now, so we text back and forth during it while it's on. I do that actually with a couple of my friends, and I just think it's a bonding experience for all of us, and it really does bring us together, and I appreciate that. Speaking of my sister, Devin, she's kind of like the Scott to my Styles. Even though I think minus the anxiety, I would be more of a Scott. I want to be in control. I want to know that the people I care about are safe. I'm very much like a protective figure. And she's got this crazy sense of humor. And she's smart. Kind of ridiculous. I can't tell you how many times I've called her in the middle of a panic attack. Just like needed help, like just to hear that voice, to know that someone's listening. And she sat and talked to me through them. Styles' panic attacks, like earlier episodes of this season in the bathroom, where Scott made Styles count the number of fingers he was holding up, talking him through it, bringing him back down. And my sister does that. Not so much the counting finger thing, but just mindless conversation. The first time I ever had a panic attack was when I was in the back of an ambulance after a car accident. I was strapped into a stretcher, scared out of my mind. My sister calmed me down, helped me think straight, sang my favorite One Direction song, and told stupid jokes until I was able to come back to myself and realize that I was safe, that my dad who was in the car with me was safe, and just brought me back and calmed me down. And she does it flawlessly, and trying to explain it to her, it's not easy. It's kind of impossible because you don't understand unless you've gone through it. And it's really, really hard to find a way to relate to it. But now I can point at Styles during certain scenes and say, this is what's going on in my head. The trouble breathing, the nightmares, the insomnia, that frantic look that Dylan gets in his eyes during the bouts of anxiety, the way they show the blurred vision. It's a nice creative move, Jeff Davis. Thank you for that. And it feels like everything is speeding up and slowing down all at once. I'm really probably doing a poor job at explaining this. I'm not very great with words, and it's also 4:30 in the morning, and I should have been in bed 3 hours ago. But like I said, hopefully it's enough to get the gist of it. And yeah, just having that person, that character that you love so much that you can relate to, is incredible. And now I can help other people understand what's going on in my head by showing Styles and being like, here, watch this. This is kind of what I'm dealing with right now. I'm not really sure why I decided to write the thank you letter. It was in the middle of a panic attack one night, actually, and it was probably right around this time. And all of a sudden I was just like, you know what? I'm going to write a letter. I'm gonna see what Tumblr can do. I think a part of me was just hoping that it would reach Dylan O'Brien one day to thank him for being so incredible, for playing anxiety accurately and making it real and relatable and honest, and for people like me, like I said, I don't really feel like I can relate to anyone, so it's been nice. It's like a little safety net. And also for those who don't understand, because I think mental illness is something that needs to be talked about more. It's very real, it's very scary, and why not start with a television show? Um, it's not an easy subject to write about, as I've found out, so kudos to you, Jeff Davis. You and the writers bringing light to it. I'm just really grateful. It made me love the show even more than I already did, and I never thought I could love a television show as much as I love Teen Wolf. I think I also wrote my letter for myself, for a way of getting my messy, jumbled thoughts out there, in hopes that other fans who are suffering anxiety attacks and panics and will read this and find out that they're not the only ones. I feel alone in my fight a lot, and I never want anyone else to feel that way. So yeah, that was my jumbled, messy, massive thank you letter. To the cast, to the crew of Teen Wolf, to my family, to my friends, for Dylan O'Brien. Just thank you. And I'll be with you to an end.